So, welcome to this session about intentional decisions and fundamental assumptions. My name is Stellan Nordahl, and together with Fredrik Lidman, I'm going to have a first an introduction to what we are talking about here, and then a dialogue with Fredrik on fundamental assumptions. But first of all, I would like to share a story of mine, and that is when I went to school, it was important with knowledge. And then at some point, I realized it wasn't enough. So I also needed experience. And right now, I think we are in a time where it's not enough. We need to actually intentionally create what we want to see. And it all, from my point of view, it all comes down to the insight I had some 10, 15 years ago when I realized that the future wasn't something I was supposed to meet. It was something I created. And at that point, it was one of the toughest times in my life. I realized that this changed everything that I have been taught. And I want you all to draw a tree. And as you do so, you realize very soon that a tree looks like this. So it's not only what can be seen, it's also what can't be seen. And the tree here is a metaphor for talking about not only what can't be seen, but also about wholeness. So the tree is always whole, even if it's not aware of it. And the size that as we measure it is always at least twice. And why we use the tree metaphor, it's because it's quite easy to talk about what we have learned here so far. We call it structure. And we call it culture. And this tree has a personal and organizational side. And you see also that we have separated it. And that is one of the main, I wouldn't say problems, but main fundamental assumptions that we're going to explore today and see, can we make another fundamental assumption? Can we make the tree whole all the time? So the idea behind this is that we have used this model. You can dig into it if you like. You find it on bit.ly/intentional decisions. There you find a short booklet, and here is the outskirts from the Swedish book about intentional decisions. It's a way of raising awareness, and as you move from victim of circumstances to creator of possibilities, you also actually move from best in the world to best for the world. So this is a worldview model, and it can be used for raising awareness and increase the consciousness in a person, in an organization, and in a society and the world at large. So what we have used is that we have used these ideas to be able to find out how can we then make this shift. So here is a picture of the tree. We just put it down to make it linear because we believe that the world is linear. So in the bottom here is a linear cognitive model where we have the belief systems we have to the left, the thoughts we have, our behaviors, and it's all measured in our actions. So this is the lower part is the linear model, and then the tree is a non-linear model. But just to be able to relate them, we made it like this. And the tree metaphor actually comes from Ken Wilber's he's a theory of everything book, and it's called AQUAL, all quadrants, all levels. So what we have done is that we have combined those ideas with intentional decisions to be able to find how can we then reform or reimagine stuff. And we can do that on different levels. And some 10 years ago, I think it was in 2006, we got this start with why idea. And then we also know a little bit about learning loops. Since beforehand, we know about the first loop, the what loops. The second is about the how we learn. And then the why do we learn, and what is the purpose behind it. And what we have now been able to add is this one. And since 2018, when this was presented first, we have been able to explore the metaphor and the fundamental assumptions behind how we look at the world. And you can do that in any belief system. And what we have done here is that we have taken our Western world belief system and scrutinized it a little bit to be able to find what kind of fundamental assumptions do we have. So if we take it from the more living system metaphor, the tree, we can see here that the tree to the right is not able to see its own whole body. It can only see what can be measured and only the crown. So we call it the watt level, and this idea here is physical me. You can easily compare this with similar ideas like spiral dynamics, like 7 levels of consciousness. There are also Buddhistic ideas like this. And then we have the formal we. We are still in the measurable world, and but those organizations, those persons and societies can see not only the what level but also the how level, and they can reflect on the absence of it on the physical me. So when formal we looks at physical me, it says you don't know how you do stuff. You haven't the ability to reflect on that. But we're still stuck in measuring stuff, and I would say even in the Created Together we are stuck, and that's the green pluralistic. If you are familiar with spiral dynamics, we still believe that our values can be measured in terms of behavior, and then there are still more to see, the rest of the root system, not only the root colors. Just to say, we don't know how many trees there is in this forest or wood, and we don't even know if it's just trees. It could be, I guess, anything. But so far we have been able to dig up stuff and see that this root system is in a soil, more or less, which we can call the worldview. And just to give one example here before we go into the fundamental assumptions that can be found, we can take the example of sustainability. If we go for sustainability, it looks like this. In the physical world, we have divided stuff. We have reduced the whole system. And what we see is those silos. And at some point, we see them as they are actually separated. We have this ability to see that they are separated. And then we start to relate them, in this case, the economical, environmental, social sustainability. And I mean, even this picture is a little bit misguiding, as the economical is seen first, and then I don't know, maybe in the 80s we realized we need to look at what's happening to the environment, and we haven't realized that we are part of the environment. So it's minimizing what harm that we have done, and then we invented this social sustainability. So sustainability in this case is not sustainable, actually. So we need to go to the system level to have a sustainable sustainability, if we use that example. And then we also have complex systems. So everything changes. We need to go from a reduced system to a complex system. All the hows will change, all the whys will change, and definitely all the whats will change, but they are still there. So it's not that it's in opposition to each other. It's more like they are different aspects of the same thing. So that said, we have one more example concerning the Sustainable Development Goals, which have a broader spectrum of, but there are still goals, and goals are need to be measured and set and accepted and stuff like that. But if we just move forward in what we have here, we can see that to be able to see what can't be seen, for instance, the SDG 14, life below water. And when Jacob Trollbeck wanted to create those, he really had a tough job taking all those promemorias and decisions that UN had taken in the Agenda 2030 and squeezes into something that was digestible and still acceptable. And that was the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which is a fantastic framework for us all. And still it's based upon goal setting. So what he wanted to do, for instance, was to use the metaphor and this language that we all have heard, but he didn't manage the full way. So one idea he had was to have life above water, so above, so below, and that was reduced to life on land. So birds and so on, they shouldn't bother, and definitely not the alien stuff. They can go somewhere else. So we still have something to do here. And this is why I would say, I will have to try to not be too critical, but we need to do something here. So moving on again, We have those core assumptions or fundamental assumptions. We are taught something in the belief systems that we are born in. Doesn't say it's right or wrong, it just says it is. And at some point, we have turned the choices into habits. And a higher level of a habit is a paradigm. So this is what we're going to scrutinize. And for the last 300 years, we have separated in the Western world the inner and outer world. And we have been extremely efficient in measuring the outer world, as that is what we do. The outer world is what we can measure. And we have had more or less the machine as the fundamental metaphor for how people work, how I love it, Chantal. How we can describe our organizations. So yeah, and I really love that, Chantal. Thanks a lot. So what we have is this deck of cards. So on the one side of them, the orange side, we have those truths that we have just accepted. And here we have, for instance, competition. This side of the card is, I mean, we can have another idea as persons, but the problem is that we have built organizations and systems and society that believes that this is true, which means that everything else, it's not true. So here it says competition is the basis for efficient development of businesses and societies. And what does that really mean? Why have we even come to the point that we see competition? And I would say, if we look at the nature with the machine eyes, competition is the answer. So the selfish gene is the answer, and so on. But as we now see that people have a wider range of ways of looking at the world, and we also have maybe a broadened sight, we realize that when we look at the world with maybe some more living metaphor, maybe the tree-letter metaphor, we see that the answer to the question is not competition, it's together. Together. And we can check that out if we use those eyes. That is the living organism, that the intents we have, they matter, and a human as part of nature, not separated from nature. Then we realize that the same answer then will be different, and the answer will then be together. It's not that competition, it's not there, it's just that it's just part of what it can be. So this is what we're going to do. And the idea here is to, for instance, if we work together, we have to be a little bit more careful with each other, definitely if we are not used to it. So the idea here is to take it step by step and have a gentle process, or gentle maybe process. I don't know if that is a machine metaphor or if it is a living metaphor. We don't know that because we have used it, for instance, when we talk about life processes and so on. Maybe it's a living word, we don't know. And so at least we have to be careful with each other. And what we're going to do now is that Fredrik Lidman and I, we have prepared some of those cards. I don't know which one you have picked, and you don't know which one I have picked. But the idea is that if you start with one that you either like or dislike, and we see how far we can go in having an alternative assumption. It's not that it's a new truth. It's just, it could be something else.
Yes, thanks, Stellan. Should you stop sharing, or are you supposed to share?
No. I can definitely stop sharing. Sorry.
Screen.
Something like that. Sorry.
So I met Stellan the first time 2 months ago. And I'm happy to join this session together. So for me also, this stack of cards is new. So I picked 4 of them since I met you also physically, Stellan, before. That kind of says something to me right now in my life. So it's not right or wrong, but it says something. And one then is kind of, it's save the planet. And I think it was the one that you also picked in your presentation, if I'm not wrong. So save the planet.
Mm-hmm.
The environment is separated from us and needs to be saved. And okay. I have to admit, as I know myself, I'm still pretty much in this mindset. And also when I watch media and other stories, kind of we're going to save the world. There are some challenges out there, but we're going to save it with technology and businesses and big society or whatever people think. So that's one way to look at it, and I can get into that mindset also.
Yeah, I have a question for you then, Fredrik. Why did you choose this? Is it that you think that it is like that, or is it like you're so tired on people saying it is like that?
I'm tired of myself being.
You're tired of yourself. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I used to. I mean, I've studied at the business school. I worked as a management consultant at McKinsey and Company. I've been totally immersed into not only this but some other mindsets and the competition and everything. But I do not get energy out of it. My soul is drained in that mindset. So when I saw this other side of the card, heal the world. We are part of the environment, and by healing ourselves, we heal the world.
Okay, so the idea
that kind
here,
of I get, yeah. So I'm also have moved in my world, also in what I do actually, which is more in line with this nowadays. Healing some relationships, healing myself, getting more love into my life, listening more to my inner world than the outer world.
And it also says there it's you're not separated from the environment. So by healing yourself, then by default you heal the world.
Yes,
it's quite easy to.
And I'm still kind of so much into that I'm separate from the environment. So this I need to continue to move into as much as I can during the rest of my life. So what have you picked? Another card?
I picked one here, which I believe is. I believe it's true in some sense. It says critical thinking.
Yeah, question the statement to validate and judge. Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I've been taught. I've been into the school system as a student for many years. First, the ordinary 9 or 10 years in Sweden, and then on we call it gymnasium as another 3, and then I was 7.5 years in the university. And critical thinking was what I was told to use. And it worked well for me, I would say, up until the point where I realized that I had experiences that didn't fit into the belief system or the thinking. And then I realized I actually needed something else. And the interesting thing here is that
creative thinking, ask questions to relate and broaden perspective.
Because this one includes this.
Yeah, it's not to lose the critical thinking aspect.
No. So it still applies, but it's from this side. This could be in opposition.
Yeah,
because I've posed questions during my years in the university that wasn't seen with nice eyes, I would say, and I loved that at that point because I thought it was interesting to have those arguments and debates. You know what debate says? It says debattle is the French for throwing your argument in the head of the other.
Okay.
So I'm much more into dialogue now, which means I had to understand your argument. Okay, your turn. Pick a card.
Can you read it?
We meet the future. We have to prepare to meet the future. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm after I worked for consultants for 20 years and also a management consultant before that, so like 25, 30 years. So it's really preparing clients for the future. And the future uncertain, we need to prepare. And also what I've seen personally, when I started kind of to wake up, you could say, to the rest of the world, was during the financial crisis and in its aftermath in like 2008, 2009, and so on. Mm-hmm. What the heck is happening? I did not understand what was happening, and that didn't feel comfortable. Not because
you prepared yourself. Why weren't you comfortable?
No, I was just running in the system. I wasn't aware of it. I was running in the system, and then I started to feel really uncomfortable. And also, it's easy also when you start to see the world, as I guess many in these sessions, we start to see more and more of the world. It's partly frightening. I mean, it's easy to get into the doomsday scenarios and to prepare and in many different ways. But it's building on fear is not helping me and the rest of the world that much, even though I know that I go into the corner of this instead of, can you read
this? We create the future. The future is created together. I'm just thinking of what you said about uncertainty. That's another, I guess, fundamental assumption that uncertainty is not good and like that. But if we look, I mean, we just short retrospective here. 1 year, we have had a steep learning curve, a change curve, and as long as you see the change curve as something that is frightening or terrifying or even something you don't like, then you have a problem by default. But if you could, I mean, what happens if you could see that change curve as a possibility curve?
Yep.
Is it my turn now? No,
yes,
you want to say something?
I just wanted to say, which matters a lot for me in my life right now. The future is created together. It's what I've done in the past 5 years or so, more intentionally than before, is kind of which people should I connect to? I mean, not kind of from a networking prestige point, but which people, is there energy around? There's something, some connection that we think, you and I, Stellan, since we met 2 months ago, there is some connection here. We don't know what, but there is some connection. And it's really in those groups that you create some future together.
An eager and a curiosity to explore that, whatever that could be. It may be something that wants to be created. Who knows?
Yeah.
I have the next one here. Here comes another one. This says, and this one I believed in so much.
Individual. We are individuals in a collective. Yes.
This word and this assumption and this way of looking, I believed it so much that I even wrote this word in the book. Up until I had a fantastic, interesting meeting with a guy called Per Johansson, who is he's working with ideas of history, and he said, "Why don't you use instead, just to try out," he said, the word person instead of individual.
So personal. We are persons in organizations, I think it says.
Wasn't that the same thing? And then he explained to me that individual in Latin means individa, which means taking out of its
context.
And I don't want to be out of my context.
We're always in context.
So I started out, this was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, so I started out to see if I could change that word every time I was just about to say individual. I just shifted a little bit. Sometimes it's great to say individual if you really mean that specific entity, but not as a concept. Then person is better.
Have you noticed the difference? So it's not just a language game, which we
go over. I've at least noticed the difference, and I also managed, I guess, to have this spread this idea a little bit at least. Okay, it's your turn. Maybe we should take one more each.
But it's 14:33.
Yeah, so you can have one more, and I will see if we can just.
Then I'll take this one.
Okay, focus on the. That's the same. Yeah, we increased individuals. Well-being, everybody's well-being increases. Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's not that it's not good.
It's not. Yeah, it's good. But will it sum up compared to which? I was provoked because you asked me this morning. Take some cards that kind of provokes you still a bit, kind of. So this is
wholenet. What is good for the whole is good for the person. So it's okay. So the other way around.
And I'm still not coming from this that much. Apart from a family and organization, and this for me is also a bit tricky because it could become authoritarian. Yes, we see the whole.
Yeah, definitely. You have to be, again, it doesn't say that there are true external deaths. No. I mean,
so that's why I'm kind of resisting it, but I still, it's partly true.
I mean, okay, so that's why good you bring it up, because definitely when you look into this deck of cards, there will be stuff that you don't agree upon. And it's not the idea that we should agree upon those cards. It's more like this is an attempt of raising awareness of that fundamental assumptions is much more ruling our world than it could be, and it also limits our causality, description of causality. So it makes it linear, it makes it reduced, and it's also I mean, if you have a complex system, I can end with this because it sums up a little bit of what this is all about. So this is an idea about complexity.
Let's see. Complexity needs to be reduced. Complex system needs to be reduced to the simple and able to navigate. To be simple and able to navigate.
This is reductionism, and I mean, I love when you do this, but I also realize it's not the thing you should do. So it's the idea here as an alternative is
complexity needs to be maintained. A complex system keeps its power and can be navigated with simple principles.
Yeah, so instead of reducing the system and setting goals, we could instead embrace the complexity. And when the complexity again is preserved, you have the power of the system, and then you can navigate or create, or whatever we call it, with principles instead. So this is pretty much what this is all about. And there are some it was me and a guy called Pontus Röisted that I think it's 3 years ago, we just sat down and see how many assumptions, fundamental assumptions, can we find with the help of this intentional decision model. There are still more to be found. I guess a lot of it is hidden. And as soon as you are aware that it is a fundamental assumption, at that point you also realize that you can have another one.
Okay, shall we introduce now?
Yeah, we should
break and the cards and what to do.
Yeah, definitely. So what we do now is if you want to engage in this, you can download those on bit.ly/fundamental-assumptions, and then you find the deck of cards there. And good luck. So